In this video, I'll show you how to install VCarve Desktop for use with Roland products. Start off by following the activation email sent to your email upon registering the device, then follow the links to download the installer. In this case, I'm going to be using version 10.5, but this process should work for any of the versions of VCarve Desktop. To get started, let's go ahead and double-click the installer. We'll then be prompted with the installer macro, and we can follow the steps along. A few options we have to check along the way, so just follow along here and make sure you're making the same steps. Okay, so this is an important one. When you're choosing the components for VCarve Desktop, you want to include the Install vTransfer option. Now, vTransfer is effectively a virtual panel for your Roland device, and is also used to relay your toolpath to the machine. So very important to have that component selected. Go ahead and select Next. Choose your directory, in this case the default. Confirm the installation, and we will allow this to perform the extraction and installation. Now that our installer is complete, we can go ahead and run the program. And there's a few options we'll need to configure out of the gate in order to set this up for output to a Roland device. In my case, my license is already activated, but you may be prompted here to put in your vector credentials, log in, and authenticate your software. Do so now if you haven't done so. At this point, I will go ahead and create a new file. Anything is fine, just want to walk through some basic details here to get started. But before we go any further, we need to select Roland machine language within that vTransfer utility that we included. So I simply selected the Windows button on my computer, typed vTransfer, and opened this utility, which is actually part of the VCarve system here. We should then be prompted with the vTransfer panel here. We'll have some options for machine controls, communications, and so on. What you want to do here is go to the File menu, select Settings, and then change the controller name here. In this case, we want to go with Roland for the configuration file, and that's it. Now we've configured vTransfer to accept our toolpaths coming from VCarve Desktop to our Roland product. Go ahead and select your device here, which should populate following the settings there. If it's not populating here, ensure you have the USB driver installed and that your machine is connected to the computer during this process. Once that's all set, you can select X, close that out. Come back to VCarve Desktop here, draw out a simple toolpath. I'm just going to create a quick engrave so that we can move towards the output option. So you could lay out your graphics, import, or design right in here. But once you're ready to output the device, you want to go to Save Toolpath. And ensure that all toolpaths are outputted to one file. And then you should find the Roland devices under our post-processor list here. The Roland 2D engraving toolpaths will really focus on the Auto-Z functionality within the system. So the Roland DE3 2D will assume that you have the Auto-Z set up on the DE3 engraver, and the spindle will be turned on by default. The Roland DE3 2D drag will be the same, assuming that you're going to be configured with an Auto-Z setup on the engraver, but with the spindle disabled for diamond scribing applications. The Roland DE3 3D post-processor will be treating the spindle Z as a live Z, and that's a scenario where you're going to set up your file, determine how deep you're going to go into the material numerically, set your passes, and so on. So think of this as like a live Z milling sort of output with the post-processor. The Roland DE3 3D drag would again be the same one, assuming a live Z action with the spindle disabled. Aside from those devices, the other post-processors are rather straightforward, all set up to a live Z scenario, and you can find your device in here, whether it be a current Roland product or a legacy product. It also may be possible to output to the DE3 by bypassing the vTransfer utility. In that workflow, you'd go ahead and select the EGX 350, the predecessor to the DE3, and output to that specific model here. So in this case, my driver is already assigned, but it's very important that you want to select this out of your print driver list and assign the post processor that we want to use to output along with the device that this is going to. Now this is a one-time setup, so as long as you follow this in the video, it will be saved in the program for future use, but that's it. You should be good to go at this point. Lastly, you can select output to the machine. You should hear the machine fire up and do its initialization for the job, and that should be it.